everyone. My name is Kandyce Young, and I am the product lead for all things data and environment. I want to take you through a few things that we've been working on here at the Council with the current state of DSS and get you a little bit into the future. But first, I know you may be wondering, well, what data and environment security, what is that? And so as I presented with Deanne a little bit earlier today, I'll let you know a little bit about what that is. It contains 3 standards, and the programs, the training material, and the supporting material for all of those standards. We've got PCI DSS, and that is providing the technical and operational baseline for securing payment account data. We've got 3DS Core, and that's where the authentication happens before the transaction, so it protects the 3DS kind of payment environment. Then we've also got PCI, the token service providers, and that is about issuing the EMVCo payment tokens and the process for developing those. So they address different parts of the payments ecosystem, but certainly their goal is the same, to protect the data and to protect the environment within it. One via cardholder data, one via the 3DS environment, and the third is via the tokenization process that helps to support the transaction. And as Gina mentioned earlier today, next year we will celebrate 20 years of PCI SSC. And that also means 20 years of PCI DSS as we know it. So even though 20 years is next year, that won't stop me today from taking us a little bit through on a journey through where PCI DSS started. I'll take you, I think it's important to kind of build the foundation for where it started so I can kind of build upon that to help you get a better idea of where we're going. I don't know if many of you were working on PCI DSS back in 2006 when it started with the SSC. Any hands here that were working on that? Well, I'll reveal a secret. I was not. But for those of you that were not also working on it like me, here's what was kind of happening at the time. So we know that the threat and the risk landscape was certainly very different. You know, payment data breaches were at an all-time high. PAN was seen extensively, so that 15, 16, or 17-digit number was kind of traversing the entire payments ecosystem. Threat actors were certainly becoming more sophisticated in how they took the card data, but also in how they were able to operationalize that card data in a fraudulent manner. Payment fraud, physical skimmers, and other physical attacks were certainly on the rise as well. E-commerce fraud was kind of slowly making its way there, and protections like WAFs, or web application firewalls, were certainly not heavily in use. But there was no standardized way for organizations to help mitigate the likelihood and impact of breaches until that is when the PCI SSC came with version 1.1 of PCI DSS. So I was doing a little bit of research into this on our website, and I thought, well, you know, as we start along this journey of DSS, it's important to kind of look at, well, what did the first version that the Council published look like? So check this out. This PCI DSS version 1.1, this was a total of 17 pages. As you can see, the first page is kind of a requirements section. You notice anything missing? No testing procedures, no guidance. That was developed separately and kind of merged into later versions of the standard. But for context, PCI DSS version 4.01, that's about 300 pages, give or take 50 extra pages or so. So that's certainly changed. And why is that? Well, PCI DSS now, the number and the complexity of requirements has changed. Why is that? Well, the technological landscape has certainly changed, and stakeholders have told us that. It took over 6,000 bits of RFC feedback to get us to PCI DSS version 4 alone. So we're very thankful to the stakeholder community for signaling what we needed to get to. But PCI DSS, as it is now, is certainly a foundational standard, and it's the basis of many organizations' security programs. I mean, many global companies speak the language of PCI DSS. But the threat landscape is certainly very different, and mainly in 3 different ways. First, in sophistication. So we know modern technology has certainly accelerated industry's adoption of modern secure payment account alternatives. We recognize that. And emerging secure solutions are certainly on the rise. Interconnectedness has changed how we look at things as well. So with the cloud environments, virtualization, microservices, and all these different types of networking components have certainly changed the way that we look at payments. And third, AI. We cannot not mention that AI has certainly today impacted how we look at payment systems, certainly have supported quicker and easier adoption of solutions, but certainly, if not configured correctly, we certainly increase that threat landscape. So we started to see PAN being replaced in some environments, certainly by fraud risk management methodologies such as EMVCo tokens. We've got dynamic data and authentication as well. So it feels like we're certainly on the verge of this breakthrough, and certainly the Council is feeling that. Like back in 2006, when PCI DSS did come out with the Council to solve a problem, to provide a consistent basis for protecting PAN. Well, now's the time for the Council's looking at how can we evolve PCI DSS to address the new challenges, and I'll tell you how we're doing that. But first, I want to share a little bit about where we are currently in the material that we're providing for PCI DSS at the moment. So you'll see here a list of different guidance material, which many of you may be familiar with if you attend our webcasts and listen to different correspondence that we put out. But I know there are a lot of new faces I've been meeting out in the conference hall that may not be aware. So we've released e-commerce requirements guidance. So there's a few little known people don't know about these requirements, 643 and 1161, to protect payment pages. But if you do know about it, we've provided some guidance on that available on our website. Integrating AI into assessments, so looking at how assessors should incorporate or could incorporate the use of AI when performing assessments. Looking at vulnerability management, so we recognize that there was some need for guidance to support how Requirement 6 and Requirement 11 kind of work together for the vulnerability management. So we've provided a two-pager summary on that. The authentication guidance, so that's the multi-factor authentication guidance that was published in 2017, we've provided an update to that, and also provided a two-page summary for organizations to get a kind of a snapshot of what's happening. Cryptography guidance was recently published, and that's certainly more than PCI DSS, but for implementers of the standard, certainly a lot of value and use there. We've also been publishing a wide array of FAQs, new and updated, to our website. Lastly, we published a blog post on AI principles, so what organizations may do, should not do, and must do when incorporating agentic AI into the payment solutions. And I must say, all of this guidance that you see here incorporates feedback from our global stakeholder community. So we thank you to those of you that are in the audience here that actually participated in the production of this guidance, because we certainly couldn't do it without you and make it as viable to the environment as it is. And finally, I will mention translations. Because we have a global community, we want to make sure that our global stakeholders are able to ingest the guidance in their natural tongue. So we've made sure that all of the guidance material you see here is also published in a variety of different languages available on our website. So where can you find this guidance? This is a common question I receive. Well, where do I get all these different guidance documents? The QR code is here, and it's available on the document library of our website. So sign up for the feed so that you can get updates the moment that we put something on the website, because the website is our single source of truth. So back to the cliffhanger I left a little bit earlier about what can we do with PCI DSS. Well, we know that increasingly, with the acceleration of the industry's adoption of secure payment account alternatives, PAN will cease to solely define what it means to be to have a cardholder data environment. And with the acceleration of the industry's adoption of different investments in secure payment technology and fraud risk management methodologies, such as I mentioned, EMVCo tokens, dynamic data authentication, and such, and that decreases the presence of PAN within the payments ecosystem. So as I mentioned before, back in 2006, we knew that PAN was constantly traversing the payments ecosystem. Today, not as much. Why? It's being replaced oftentimes by EMVCo payment tokens that have reduced value for data theft and fraud. In 2023 alone, tokenized transactions accounted for 32% of all e-commerce transactions. And cloud tokenization services grew by 20% in 2023 as well. So that really signals a shift towards SaaS-based security solutions. Individual payment brands are also acknowledging that there's been higher penetration rates in that space as well. And different regions also expect a significant uptake in these tokenized transactions well into 2028. So while the prevalence of payment account data, certainly within this payments ecosystem, is decreasing, that trajectory does not decrease the value of securing the payment environment itself. Environments may have other sensitive data elements that, in addition to PAN or other than PAN, that if compromised, could certainly still lead to fraud, reputational risk, loss of customer confidence, and a variety of contractual challenges. So protection is certainly still required. But PCI DSS's mission is not changing, and I have it up here to make sure that I can clarify that. Our role is certainly to enhance the global payment account data security by developing standards and supporting services that drive education, awareness, and effective implementation by stakeholders. Payments haven't slowed. In fact, in the 2024 report states that 791 billion credit card transactions happened in 2024. That's an average of 2.17 billion transactions per day. So it's certainly not slowing. But led by our policy-setting executive committee, it's critical that we keep pace with the evolving payment security, and we intend to do that in partnership with all of you. Guided by this mission, we do have some key principles that we are keeping in mind as we look to evolve PCI DSS. But first, the question is, why now? Why evolve PCI DSS now? What is the problem that we are intending to solve? And I've alluded to that a little bit earlier in this presentation, but I'll clarify it here with these key points. Over the last decade, the increased presence of secure payment account alternatives, that means a decrease of PAN being present within the payments ecosystem, within some ecosystems. So the strong adoption of the industries of these fraud risk management methodologies and the strong adoption of technology, that has caused security obligation and the risk responsibility to move upstream from the merchant to the provider. And so through the use of this technology and these secure solutions, we certainly recognize that that shift is happening. The simple and complex environment security profiles are certainly evolving as well. So security requirements need to evolve to align with that. We need to prioritize the risk or prioritize our efforts based on the risk involved. So looking at the likelihood versus the impact, as well as the environmental complexity. Risk management considerations can be built in from the start because it's no longer a one-size-fits-all approach to different organizations. Certainly, there are nuances that need to be looked at. Thirdly, we look at, with these improved risk management methodologies, as well as the improved technology, maintaining industry baselines of security assurance, that certainly remains essential for the safety and the soundness of the payments industry. And finally, PCI DSS, in partnership with our stakeholder community, is uniquely positioned to provide these industry-wide frameworks and securing these varying environments. And to respond, it's important to look at these different aspects here. We have 3 ways that we are looking to respond to the why, and that's in our approach. 3 key areas of our approach. We want to respond to the industry demand, so we have significant stakeholder feedback. We're very thankful to our stakeholder community for signaling, hey, things are changing, and we are all being prepared to evolve. So the decreased presence of traditional static payment data elements, because of this evolving technology is happening, stakeholder engagement will certainly be a key factor to directionally influence the way that this standard is evolving. PCI DSS and its supporting program, its supporting material need to evolve to support more of a risk-based security practices for payment environments with limited or no PAN at all. And thirdly, we remain committed to the principle that an entity's cost of compliance should not outweigh the security benefit that it provides. So these are the 3 key components of our approach. As for the goals, what is the end state, what we hope to achieve here with the help of our stakeholder community? First, we need to establish a baseline environmental security structure, which is intended to secure sensitive payment account data and elements, processes globally that are not solely defined by the presence of PAN. PCI DSS mission remains the same, so it's now time to support the global payment environment, that it's not solely based in PAN, but looking at other payment data elements in collaboration with our global stakeholder community to help us formulate what that will look like. We need to provide organizations with flexibility to apply security rigor based on the risk profile that they've got. So this includes giving organizations the ability to easily adapt to changing technological environments without significant overhead, but without compromising security to do it. Thirdly, we need to distinguish between, there are different types of environments, between complex and simple environments that will ensure that the responsibility for the security control adherence is proportionate to the risk. That means those organizations taking the risk or the organizations that are responsible for defining the required security controls. This includes developing a security program for simple environments based on to support the industry's prevalence of these secure payment solutions. So if we just think more broadly, simple environments certainly look at organizations that typically meet PCI DSS via a self-assessment questionnaire. And complex environments would be those that typically meet PCI DSS via a report on compliance. So stay tuned for how we evolve those concepts. The fourth component is providing a clear impact for organizations that use a PCI SSC listed solution. So scope reduction opportunities, potentially. So an entity knows how the use of a PCI SSC listed solution impacts their completion of a PCI DSS assessment. And finally, we need to make sure that we optimize and modernize our validation documents so that it is fit for use and supports a variety of stakeholders across the payments industry now and well into the future. So just a few goals here, but certainly they are intended to make sure that we evolve with technology and we continue to remain partners, a strong partner in the payments industry. But these are not going to be done alone, certainly. And we've begun the process of engaging a lot of our key stakeholder groups on particular topics. And we want to make sure that we address three key areas, three key questions that we want to engage our key stakeholders with. And that's, what's the best way to meet these goals? So the goals that I mentioned on the previous slide, there were 5 of those. We want to engage our stakeholder groups to make sure that we meet each of those goals in the right way. So we're starting these conversations now so that we can make sure that we reach as many stakeholders as possible and hear all the different perspectives from the variety of industries. We want to make sure, what's the best time frame to get there? So pacing the industry appropriately for these changes and signaling what's coming appropriately is certainly a key component there. So we can set realistic expectations, and so the industry can be prepared to adapt and evolve along with us. And third, how do we prepare the market for these changes? So we know that PCI DSS version 4.0.1, the new requirements became effective in March 2025. So organizations certainly need a few cycles to kind of get those new requirements adopted into in their environments. But certainly there may be ways that the council can help to support that evolution and that progress. So we're going to be looking towards our stakeholders to help guide us on how to do that. And I'll give you, if you'll walk through this with me, I want to give you a little example of why your feedback is so important. So, as you can see, this is not in PCI DSS here, but this does represent a scenario that happened with my son. So he came home one day and he said, "Mom, can you help me with this math question?" And so it's a math app that he uses, and it tracks the progress of each student's, how each student is doing. So I'm like, yes, we've got to work on this. And I thought, well, he's 6 years old, so of course I can help you on this thing. I do PCI DSS. What's the math problem? So it says here, the question is, find the shapes. You're supposed to click a shape with each of the features. Seems easy enough, right? Well, the way this question was worded, I answered it this way. I thought, okay, the shape, the one that rolls, the one that slides, the one that does something else, I answered it this way. But it was wrong. So I took a screenshot of it and I sent it to my friends that had kids of similar ages. I'm like, how would you answer this question? I'm having a hard time answering my 6-year-old son's math homework. But we all had the same issue. We all answered it this way. Until I thought, maybe there's another way of interpreting this directive. Well, if we add the word all and then select all of the shapes with the same feature, it eventually worked. And I can tell you I was happier than my son when we got this answer right, because one word makes the world of difference. How many of you have had that experience where one word in the standard can make or break something? But in security, we don't have the opportunity to guess until we get it right. We don't get that immediate feedback, right or wrong. Unfortunately, if it's wrong, sometimes we find out when it's too late. So PCI DSS supports stakeholders all over the world as well. So there are language translation challenges, but also different configurations of environments that are sometimes region-specific. So the more perspectives that we get on the requirements, on the approach, on the timeframes, the more likely we are to get to the right answer the first time. And I know you all are wondering, what's the answer? What's the answer? This is the correct answer. So it's multiple shapes per, because you're supposed to select all. Tell me I wasn't the only one that got this, that thought of this. But this just goes to show you the importance of getting stakeholder feedback, because had this app gone through maybe an RFC period or gone through some sort of workshop, you would have seen the difference of interpretations and we would have been able to address that. So certainly PCI DSS will be going through that iterative process with our stakeholders, and we intend to receive feedback to make sure that we get it right with you all the first time. So as for the different stakeholder groups, we have a variety. We've got our principal participating organizations and board of advisors are some of the most influential companies in global commerce. We have 4 of the largest merchants in the world that sit on our board of advisors. And we also have the top 10 global merchant acquirers that also sit on this advisory board. These 10 organizations together account for 95% of all card-based payments, that volume in the United States alone. But we also have to hear from you, and we have to hear from you as well. And so we want to make sure that we hear all of your insights. So this session, this week, is very important. We want to make sure that we collect all of that information from you. We think of each of you almost as EV stations or electronic vehicle stations that fuel and support the direction of PCI DSS with the energy of the future. And we want to plug into each of you to make sure that our vehicles all moving directionally in the same place. But keep in mind, this is the first time we've done a lot of this, the first time we brought stakeholders in so early in the update process. The first time we've taken a fully baked standard and sought stakeholder input to directionally influence the strategy for future development. And this is the first time that we've received input and been so transparent to a variety of our stakeholder groups, from a geographical perspective, but also from different types of industries. So we can certainly say that the future of DSS will be shaped through this global collaboration. But PCI DSS is certainly a fantastic standard, and not just because I work on it every day. It is amazing, and it's foundational to many organizations' security programs. We've been told that. Our stakeholders have told us that it is the basis for a lot of what they do every single day. So the next step is to make sure that PCI DSS continues to provide the industry with effective ways to secure payment environments in recognition of these modern fraud risk mitigation technologies and these payment account alternatives. We acknowledge that, and we want to work together to make sure that we can all continue to evolve in the same direction. Payments have gone beyond PAN, and it's now time for PCI DSS to do the same. So what can you do now? Visit the PCI booth, talk to us, tell us about your ideas and thoughts you may have about this. Share these bold ideas that you have. But bookmark our website, pcidsc.org, because we're constantly updating with blog posts and new material to kind of give you an update on our progress, but also solicit some feedback. And finally, connect with others, because we are all joined by our love of payments, and when we have ideas together, that's when they get bigger and stronger. So PCI is grateful for your time, for your collaboration, and your commitment to securing payments well into the future. So let's join together and bring us through and create the future of PCI DSS. Thank you.